Right. So make yourself comfortable in the chair. If anybody's watching the recording and you haven't done this before, just always go nice and easy and gently. Copy as best that you can. Don't feel you have to do everything. And even more experienced people, try and have a sense for how you're feeling at the moment. And to do that, just get into a comfortable posture in your chair. Ideally, you can be a little bit forwards, tilt forward, so you put a bit of weight in your feet. That's the posture that we're sort of trying to cultivate. But it's important that you feel that you're not having to strain for that. And just let your attention to your posture and this process of finding a comfortable posture sort of anchor your attention and anchor your thoughts, to kind of draw your thoughts inwards. I've heard this process likened to just setting a jar of muddy water on a table and giving it time for the mud to settle. And generally what happens is, in my experience, what happens to me is a little bit of settling, and then a sort of stray thought ones is like somebody bumps into the table and everything gets disrupted again, and then it settles. Over a period of time, you learn how to settle, learn what's involved in that, what works best for you, where are the most important anchor points to settle your attention on, how to come back to them. And this is an ongoing process in Tai Chi. We could argue that actually that everything in Tai Chi potentially holds one or more of those anchor points. So a constant sense of coming back to this feeling of stillness, of spaciousness, a sense of somewhere you can rest for a moment. And also recognizing that we are, in a way, we want our attention to go out. We don't want to build a wall around ourselves. And Tai Chi is an immensely practical art. The phrase that I like from the old writings in Tai Chi urges us to seek the stillness within the movement. So at the moment, I'm describing it as either or, but actually, this is so that we can cultivate that sense of stillness, which when it becomes something that is more natural to us, something that we can access more easily, integrates with the movement. Now, just rubbing your hands together and then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arms. And the other side. And the upper part of the chest. Down to your belly. And that aspect of the stillness, the settling, is one of a relatively small number of basic elements that we always start off with, regards to how long you've been doing this, to bring them to the surface so that they're there for you to draw into the movements and to the exercises. They're also, I would consider, the things that we do the practice for, because if we can develop these various aspects to a point where we can access them much more easily, then they're available to us in our daily lives. So next, going into the reclining position, feet out, let your weight drop back. So we allow ourselves to settle, but that becomes very specific in Tai Chi. We want a feeling of our weight dropping. We want to allow gravity to have, if you like, a free passage through the body, drawing our weight inwards and downwards. And in this posture, because we've got maximum support from the chair, we're more likely to be able to do that, because our habit is generally to strain against gravity, to see if we can somehow defy gravity, which of course is a futile task. Much better, as hopefully will become apparent, to guide the passage of gravity through our body so that it becomes useful to us. But in the first instance, how does it feel to allow gravity to work through your body, to maybe, I don't know, to put your shoulders back, to make it flattening in your chest, to allow your hips to drop, to allow the buttocks to sink into the chair, and so on and so forth. And how does that affect you? How does that feel in your body? Does it affect your breathing, perhaps, or does the effort that you make to do that, does it prove frustrating, or does it actually have this effect of also, again, drawing your attention inwards and downwards? So this settling in with this posture, noting some of the effects, some of the outcomes. And then you bring your feet in, come back up to the upright position. So we want this downward movement of gravity to become very specific, to root down in Tai Chi terms, so that our center of gravity drops downwards towards, and ultimately, in intentional terms, through the ground. This has an immediate benefit, and you notice it more if you were standing, but the lower your center of gravity, the more stable you are. The lower your center of gravity, the lower your weight, the more your weight has dropped through your body, the less strain there's going to be on the upper part. So the rooting down really is one of the key foundation stones of the whole art. And thinking this, focusing on this again, has that effect of drawing our attention downwards. And this should become one of the constant qualities that are literally the foundation for the whole art. Beginning to appreciate how particularly your upper body is being supported, your back supporting the front of your body. And increasing sense of that area of the skeleton, not purely the skeleton, but the area in and around the skeleton, supporting you from within. And this, I think, again, is a really important aspect of Tai Chi. It offers us a perspective on our body that says that we don't need that tension, we don't need that stiffening up, that straining, simply to become upright. And we often carry ourselves so tense, we lift our shoulders up, we stiffen our back, but it feels normal and it feels necessary. And as we develop these ideas, we get moments when everything seems to settle, and when that happens, we begin to realize that we're still upright, we still have a shape, we're still supported. So this quality that leads to what I refer to as inner strength, or I prefer the term inner resilience. This is an aspect of Tai Chi that really has its roots in the martial element of Tai Chi, but it's significant for all of us in all of its aspects. But we do have strength, the resilience within the body to support ourselves and to move. So try and keep that in the back of your mind. Again, this is one of those what I would regard as active ingredients in medicine. In the development of pharmaceuticals, they identify active ingredients. So something like, you know, the various forms of paracetamol, that they may have different shapes, different colors, flavors, and so on and so forth, but they will all contain certain chemicals. I don't know what they are, but that are the things that you're wanting to bring into your body to to cure the headache or whatever. And these are regarded as active ingredients. And so we have that calming, that drawing in of the mind, quietening of the mind, but still keeping a sense of alertness so that we're aware of what's going on. We have the work on posture that allows the alignment with the pull of gravity, that allows for the rooting down, allows gravity to pull the center of gravity to pull our weight downwards. We have that sense coming from that actually, without the tension, without the tightness, we still can feel strong, supported. We have the energy to move. So the posture that we're looking for here, ideally, and again, if you're not used to this, go nice and easy. It's quite a strong posture, but it doesn't require tension. If you can sit forward on the chair, notice how I've tilted forwards. And this brings about 1/3 of my weight into the feet. And I can feel supported by my feet and my hips. So again, supported by your feet, supported by your hips, center of gravity low down, so less need to strain in the upper part of the body and more stability. Again, that won't be so obvious in the chair. And a growing awareness of this inner quality and Tai Chi. These are all what we might term active ingredients. And with that perspective, and trying to maintain that perspective as a constant, just slowly turning the head. Bearing in mind that head and neck are often those areas in the body that strain the most. So they might well be very stiff. One of the qualities that these different elements, these different ingredients produce when they start to combine is a sense that there is more space within the body, less tension, more space. And so then we start to get this sense of the movement, the flow, the energy. Notice that in the way that we're describing it at this stage, particularly when we're starting off, those postural elements and the quieting of the mind come before the awareness of the movement. It's not to say the awareness of the movement, the energy is at all irrelevant, but it's dependent upon posture. You can't get a good sense of the flow, the quality of the movement if you're fighting against your own body. And this posture opens up the possibility that we cease to fight against something. But now we get another one of these active ingredients emerging from these initial ingredients, which is the feel of the movement, the flow of the movement. Here, placing your hands in front of your shoulders, circling your elbows back. And we start to recognize patterns in that flow of the movement. Some parts of the body expanding, other parts contracting, never expanding, never contracting to a point where it creates tightness and stiffness in the body. And then going forwards. So you're thinking about it in a linear sense. It's the focusing of our attention, the stillness that comes out of that leads us into the ability to move. Bringing your hands down to your sides, just rotating your arms, spiraling movement from shoulders, fingertips. And those of you more familiar with these movements, also including your awareness of what's happening in the movement, what's happening in your chest, shoulder blades, your upper back. All of these different aspects are things that we bring quality of intentionality to, a conscious intentionality. We intend to rotate our arm. We intend to flow. We intend to move down. And then raising your arms like you're winding up silk. And then back. Losing that sense of the flow of the movement, but not not fabricating that. Remember, it emerges from other factors. Rest your hands. So then developing that aspect of the movement very specifically, tilt your pelvis forwards, little weight going into your feet, and then the hips drop back in the chair, coming up. So we have this flow of the movement forwards and downwards into the feet, getting the legs compressed, a gentle push from the feet, essentially the hips being pulled back, and gravity to put your hips back, creates the flow backwards. And we begin to be able to come upright without having to strain our back, and shoulders, and our neck. Remember, much of your weight is now flowing down always towards the ground and through the ground. And we begin to realize the significance of this central part of the body, pelvis, hips, and waist. Imagine it as like a ball. When the ball rolls forward slightly, that's when the weight goes forwards and you get this angling. And when the ball rolls back, that's when you get pulled back into the upright. So this is asking us to redirect our attention. Often when we try to come upright, we're straining our shoulders, trying to pull ourselves up. Here, the focus of our attention is in the rolling of the ball, the dropping back of our hips. And when we also rotate horizontally, we can direct that way. This is an intentional thing. So if I'm facing towards this leg, if you're mirroring my movement, your intention is for your weight for that ball to drop into your left foot and then back into your hips and then forwards into your left foot. The weight transfer is another one of these key ingredients in Tai Chi. Really important for our stability and our mobility. If I were to just randomly move my weight out here, I would fall out of the chair. But when I move it into my foot, I'm still secure. Turn in the other direction. But so much of these basic ingredients are concerned with what's happening in the lower part of the body, in that feeling of a connection to the ground in one way or another, and in the center of the body, which guides and directs the movement. These should be practiced until they become part of how we move. And then circling. So the movement, the energy is guided by our intentionality. Our intentionality is clear because of the focusing of our attention through our body. We can move more freely because of the route and back in the other direction. And we start to get that awareness of the flow of the movement in the upper part. So these are the elements, the ingredients, however you care to think about them, that are constants in Tai Chi. When we build up these lovely elaborate movements, especially using the upper part of the body, especially in chair-based exercises, these are the foundations for those movements. So we could spend a lot longer than I already have on this, spend an entire session on these, really becoming familiar with these and repeating that on a daily basis reinforces and hardwires our awareness of them. Before we get to the actual movements, just getting the legs moving, step out, press your foot gently into the floor, back. So you place the foot, heel, toes, and that gentle pressing, planting the foot back. And that contact with the ground becomes very clear. Try on the other side. Not tensing, allowing this feeling that I've described before as releasing. Another quality when we release tightness in the body, we allow gravity through. And then come back. So that's it really. That's really sort of what we're going to be developing and cultivating through the rest of the movements. And it's important to realize that in a way, when we come to the main body of exercises, that can challenge us. We can easily lose. And I see it all the time, even in quite advanced players. And I see it in myself, how we lose that awareness of where our weight is, of where our feet are, how we lose the focus of our intention. But you'll begin to notice when that happens, and you can bring that back. I've described these things in a very linear way, in point of fact they interact with each other, they're mutually supportive. But now, let your hands drop down again, turn the palms of your hands forwards, move the weight forwards and rotate at the same time. So bird folds. Once again, movement of the weight, the rolling movement in the center of your body. Moving your head and shoulders forwards, and you can see that moves the arms. So as well as being very important just in our lives for mobility, the movement of the weight, the rooting down, actually provides a very important, the major dynamic that is going to move our arms forwards. So if we lose touch with that dynamic, then we're fabricating the movement with our arms. Think of your arms as being there to create a shape, a pattern for that dynamic, for that energy to be expressed through. The whole of your upper body. One teacher I went to had a very good image for this. He said, there's a great master of the art, I felt, somebody called Ricky Jin. He was a lovely mover, and he described that connection to the ground, the root, as being like plugging in a vacuum cleaner. And if you've ever been vacuuming your room and suddenly the vacuum stops and you think, what's wrong? And then you eventually get to the plug and the plug has just pulled out a millimeter and it's lost that connection and the whole thing grinds to a halt. If we don't realize that that's what's happened, essentially, if we carry on moving at that point, carry on trying to move the arms, it's like we're trying to vacuum the floor and there's no electricity, so the vacuum cleaner isn't actually working. This time, changing the movement, so from the forward position, palms facing back, just letting your arms swing through. Fisherman cast and net. So in the first instance, we feel, oh yeah, that my weight moves, my shoulders move forwards, my arms follow. And gradually, our awareness of the dynamic within the upper body increases. We can bring a quality of intentionality to that. Which areas of the body are most useful to enhance the movement in expanding and contracting patterns. We find that our bodies respond very quickly, very fully to our intentions. They do that anyway, whether those intentions are useful ones or conscious ones or unconscious and destructive ones. intentionality is always there. When they're unconscious, we call them habits sometimes. The old writers in Tai Chi sum this up with some very simple phrases. First in the mind, and then rooted in our feet, transmitted through our legs, guided, directed, shaped through the center of our body, expressed in our upper body levels. Try to just notice details. So again, people who are more experienced, you will just be able to notice more details and bring a greater sense of intentionality. What, for instance, happens in that moment? I can only do this with one hand, kick the end, but here my arm naturally swings up. Then as I start to go back, it will start, gravity will pull it down. Can you notice that moment of change from the rising movement, the expanding movement, to the contracting, dropping movement, from the yang, the arms swinging up, to yin, beginning to drop down? What happens in the shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, your fingers? What brings you back to that central position? Because it's the contracting movements that we're more likely to reconnect with those fundamentals. We want to maintain that connection in the outward going movements, but the more we expand outwards, the more likely we are to lose touch with it. I remember when we lose touch with them, when they cease to be consciously there, albeit in the background at this point, so we're not, we've moved on from focusing entirely on them, but still aware of them, something will change. The quality of the movement will be lost. And our priority at that point is to find those qualities again, those active ingredients. And then rolling the ball. Moving your arms up by resetting your posture, not by lifting your arms. If you look carefully here, notice the angle between my arm and my side. As I come up, it remains the same for most of that time. This way, I get a sense of what is actually causing my arms to come up. It feels to me like a wave coming up underneath my arms, coming up from my legs, from my feet, from my belly, from my chest. And at that point, I might decide to build on that. I can bring an intentionality to increase the power of that wave, the push up from the feet, the expansion in the upper body, and I can get more movement with my arms without having to strain the shoulders, my back, or my arms. And when I'm not straining, there's this very distinctive flow that builds. But notice how independent all of this is from external conditions. It's not that we're totally isolated. Gravity is a key factor here, chair that we're sitting on, and so on and so forth. But sometimes it's quite interesting if there's a noise outside, or sometimes if there's some kind of thought that intrudes on that sense of silence and stillness. Can we not get distracted by that? Can we bring our attention back to those basic elements so that the flow doesn't get disrupted by those? This time, turning your hands palm in, drawing back. Pigeon spreads its wings. Again, we're not building a wall around ourselves. We're not trying to cut off those stimuli from the outside world. And in fact, I would argue that at its best, Tai Chi remains aware of those, so they don't become a surprise to us, as it were. And yet, they needn't disrupt the benefits that we get from those active ingredients. So we learn that it's possible to enjoy those benefits, not just when we're doing Tai Chi, but when we're engaging with the rest of our lives. And then pushing away. That latter point, I think, is very important. We're not waiting for the ideal conditions. We can apply that internally. You know, maybe there's something going on in your body that is less than perfect. It could be something very simple, like maybe your back's aching a bit. Something much deeper than that. But it doesn't have to prevent us from bringing these active ingredients in and beginning to apply them. If my back's aching a little bit, maybe by generating that fluid energy, I can actually bring about a sense of relief in that area. This is, again, one of the outcomes we're looking for is this balancing, this harmonization of the internal energy. That's a very important aspect of Chinese medicine. Changing the game, rolling your fingers into a hollow fist, rotating your arms as you go. Some of these movements you'll find it will be easier to maintain those active ingredients. Others you might not find so easy. This is quite normal in my experience. We find different ways of bringing a sense of intentionality to it. Might be some of us memory of how the movements can be. Might be use of an image, like moving through water, or of body being gently massaged by the flow of the movement. Might be an image suggested by the name of the movement. And again, we can note how responsive our bodies can be to imagery. Now open your fingers and wind them. Now the chest opens here. Try and get a feeling that it's your chest opening and then contracting. Similar opposite movement in your back. It's actually moving your arms for you rather than the other way around. Turning your hands back. Polishing the table, turning, extending out gently, swinging around, being very careful with your back here. Recognizing how far it's possible to move without constricting that space, that flow of movement in. Going to 80% into full movement. So we're not trying to stretch. And in particular, that tight back or whatever, making sure that we don't add to the pressure. I sometimes will use an image of water flowing over a rock in a riverbed, gradually wearing the rock down, smoothing it on. Sometimes that can help to release those areas of blockage. Sometimes using our breath if it's comfortable for you. Take a deep breath in as you can breathe into that area. When we breathe in, we draw fresh energy into the body, and breathing out what would be described as the stagnant energy. Chinese mix. One more time. Coming back to the center, turning your hands palm up, feeling gravity working through your body, feeling the weight of your head, almost compressing that ball in the middle of your body. And then the ball expands, pushing your hips down, pushing your feet down, pushing your hands up, and then contracting. So for there to be an upward or an outward movement, there always has to be an association with a downward, rooting down type movement. We recognize another essential aspect to that active ingredient of the root, connection to the ground. Without that, it's not possible to have those flowing movements in a sustainable way. In a way that isn't dependent on an outside influence that comes from within, comes from the ground. And then wildness. The bird in flight may offer an image, but it's important to realize that this is not about the image. The images are in the service of the movements, not the other way around. So this isn't like maybe a hypnotherapy exercise or a guided journey, all of which can be very good, where there may be an intention to develop the image. Although the best of those will always bring you back to an awareness of where you actually are. So if an image doesn't work for you, don't feel that you've somehow failed or that you have to chase after it. And then parting the clouds. I think this is a lovely image. The sun coming out from behind the clouds can create this expansive, opening feeling. But then if you start to think, oh, it's a bit grey outside, I wish the sun would come out, that's a distraction. One more time. And then your hands come down, feel the weight of your arms hanging from the shoulders, pushing up. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky, feeling the movement from the soles of your feet up through your leg, your hips up to the side of your body, to the side of your rib cage and your shoulder, up into your fingers and down again. One more time. And then split your hands rest. I'm going to move to the standing exercises now. I spent a long time on that opening section of the active ingredients, so we'll miss out some of the regular exercises that we do. But I think it's important to feel that we can take these into the standing postures. Before we do, just rubbing your hands together, and once again, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And on the other side. The upper part of the chest. And your belly. And the legs. Pushing your heels up. Yeah, get the muscles of your legs working a little bit after being seated for a while. And then circling. And then back. Now stand carefully. So it can be very challenging to bring these qualities that we find in the chair to the standing position. We're instantly put into a position where we might find ourselves in conflict with the pull of gravity. We may also have, there may be physical issues that make it difficult. But see if you can just find a way of standing that allows the pull of gravity to work straight down through your body into your feet. If I get this pole, in theory, it's possible for me to find a position for it where it's so perfectly aligned that doesn't happen. Of course, it's very difficult to do that, but the theory is still correct. So you may want to just roll your weight forwards and backwards a little bit until you feel more settled. Aware of your posture. This is a very conscious, deliberate action, and just allowing your hips, I come closer, allowing your hips to release, to cease to struggle against the pull of gravity. Your hips will drop down just a little bit. You sit into your legs. There's a slight curve in your knees. And here we can really feel the value of the rooting down, that dropping of the center of gravity. Let your hips drop down a little bit more and feel how you reach a point where your legs just begin to expand and you push up. So again, this is a very dynamic process. You sink down, you root down, and then when you push up, you start to feel that rising, expanding energy coming through the body. And then it sort of peters out and you sink down and touch base again and push up. And bringing your hands around the exercise we did a few moments ago in the chair, rooting down, using that rising energy to push your arms up and gravity to draw you down. Expanding and so we're paying attention. We have that first in the mind. We're dropping our center of gravity, rooted in the feet. You feel the energy that comes from that transmitting through our legs. One more time. Now, changing the stance, turn one foot out and a bit step forwards with the other foot. So the stance is roughly square. This time, the transmission of the energy from the root is guided forwards. This is where the center of the body comes in. You want them to be guided backwards. So the weight begins to transfer precisely into your feet. Once again, if I go back and my weight goes back that way, this is when I stumble. So there's a very practical element to this. When we practice bringing that conscious intention to the quality of the physical quality of weight transfer, we have a direct effect on our mobility and our stability. Trying to maintain that alignment of your body as you move, bring the hips dropping back, helps to keep your pelvis level, helps to keep the center level. And so when the center's level, you're more likely to be upright. Letting the shoulders drop, feeling the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. When you go forwards this time, push your back knee forwards, so more of your weight slips into the front leg. Go back. Raise the toes, same thing. Some of you may remember me talking last week about single weightedness, the weight ratios, and gradually more of your weight coming into the supporting leg. Your body aligning over the supporting leg, not leaning. And so making it possible to take a slow step, drawing the foot in, step out, the heel goes down, the toes, you plant the foot. When you step back, it's going to be the ball of your foot goes down first, and then the heel, then the planting. And then with your other foot forwards, and the same thing again. It's a very useful exercise, very important exercise for all sorts of reasons, not least because it does help to condition the legs. It's not enough to have the intention to do something if physically your body is unable to do it because the muscles haven't conditioned in the right way. It's going to remain a struggle, so we can't overlook that physical aspect of the art. Remember always that awareness of these things that we're doing really helps cultivating this quiet, calm quality. Less need to fidget around to lose that sense of the stillness, leading to raise heels and toes. And then just take a few steps through, either forwards or backwards. Take your time, one step at a time, planting the foot, then moving your weight. Change direction if you haven't done so already. But we can see how these active ingredients, when we can start to make them work for us, actually contribute to just basic walking. Okay, now have your right foot forwards. Start with your weight in your back foot. Move your weight forward, settling down in the front foot, and as you do, turn and let that turn swing your arms out. So a bit like the wild goose in the upper body. Come back, let your arms drop down, turn to your right and swing out. This is a movement called Windlows to Willows. And here we feel again that whole combination rooted in the feet, transmitted through our legs, guided by the center of the body, expressed through our upper body and our arms. Observing from that point of stillness, and from that point of stillness, able to direct our intentions. Maybe helped by this lovely image of the willow tree with its deep roots, its supple wood. Try that with your other footfalls. You may find it easier on one side than another. But going into the front leg, your left leg, turning to the right. Don't lose the sense of what's happening in your legs and your hips and your pelvis, keeping that sense of the root. But obviously, a fair bit of your attention is now in that upper body, in that expressive aspect. So we're learning to maintain both that inner awareness, but also, in a sense, that outer awareness alongside each other. Now, this time, go forwards. Well, another direction again, but I'm going forward. My back knee bends, my rear foot comes in. You could do it the other way. Plant the foot forwards. This is an exercise called Dragonfly Skims the Water. And then, if I'm feeling comfortable with this, I'll let you know. Maybe I'll just raise the leg. So this is quite difficult. Don't strain. If you find that you're wobbling around, put the foot down. Let your upper body soften. It's better to do that than it is to stiffen up. Remember how your arms responded to the pull of gravity in some of the earlier exercises. Should be no tension, no straining in your shoulders. Change in direction. Don't come up. Sink down. This is not like a ballet movement when we're trying to reach to the sky. It's like the willow tree putting its roots down to spread its branches out. One more time. Shake. Go back to your chair. So once again, reminding ourselves of those what I've described as the active ingredients, because these are the things, yeah, believe it or not, I don't walk down the road to go shopping doing dragonfly skims the water. I just walk down the road like hopefully most other people, but trying to maintain the root, the awareness. When I'm washing up, I'm not washing up standing on one leg or imagining that I'm flying like a bird or anything like that. I'm washing up. So this is those active ingredients that will make the contribution to our daily lives. And this, I think, is the true significance of this of this practice. So it is a very practical art in that sense. So at the end of the session, coming back to those active ingredients, aware of your posture, aware of the way that an awareness of your posture settles your attention, brings you to this sense of stillness. But how many times in a day do you think it's useful to just for a moment or two settle, be still, to be quiet, to release some of those tensions and whatever else is going on in your life? How many times a day is it useful to root down, to feel that stability? How many times a day do we lose those qualities? For this exercise called Embrace Tiger, return to the mountain. You're pushing your arms out, feeling the pull of gravity working through your hips, your back, your shoulders, drawing your hands around, letting your elbows drop, noticing that brings your hands in and coming back. And then perhaps here become aware of another key factor, another ingredient, which is the pattern of the movement. Contracting movement that draws our attention inwards, allows us to settle, leads to an expanding movement as we reach out, which in its turn brings us back to the contracting. Yin, the yang, yang, abstract terms. And this is said to be the pulse of life, if you like. So, you know, when we engage with the world, those patterns of yin yang can be there. And one of the things we're trying to do is to harmonize with those patterns, to find a way to navigate them, to get to where we want to be without challenging those forces. How does that feel in your body? What would be most useful for you to recall later in the day when there is that need for the stillness, for the root, that sense of being centered? You want to restore the flow of the movement in your body. One more time. Coming back once again to settle the tension in your body, aware of your posture, aware of the gravity through your body. Aware maybe of noises and movement outside. Not ignoring those, but not getting caught up in. To say, lovely. So apologies for not going through the full set of movements, but I wanted to make that point about the key ingredients here. It's very easy to lose track of those. There are thousands of movements out there. There are probably thousands of people in the world producing films and videos of more and more elaborate movements. But actually, what is really useful to us, I think, are these active ingredients. And I'll try to outline some of those in a particular way, because there are many. Going back to the painkiller analogy, you go into a chemist, there could be a dozen different varieties of paracetamol, different packaging and so on and so forth. You may have reasons for choosing one over another, but that they all have to contain those those active ingredients. Otherwise, we're just wasting your money out. So hope that was useful to you as always. If you do have any questions, do please feel free to get in touch. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks.
Thank you.